Welcome, everybody. I'm Alice and my co host.
Hey, I'm Donald, and if you're here watching us, you survived February because it was quite the intense energy.
That's right. And today we're going to be summarizing February from the book by Eve Smith, Ching Predictions for 2026. And we're going
Hmm.
to look at what did we experience from the perspective of being in the collective energies. There were two of them in February. And then what can we anticipate perhaps for moving into March? So, Donald, could you summarize a little bit for us about February?
Sure. In February, we were moving from energy of trapped into energy of steadfastness. Basically, the month started with a bit of a pressure build of us feeling trapped because we're getting awareness of maybe some cycles from the past that we no longer prefer repeating. So, February is here to support breaking free of those cycles through awareness. The energy shifted from our awareness by taking small actions and moving towards more what we prefer to happen with the steadfastness. So that's a really brief summary. There's a lot more in depth stuff in Eve's book, but that's what was going on.
What did you notice in the beginning with the trapped energy? Because I think on our last video, we were talking a little bit about the feelings of trap. But now that you've lived through it and you're looking back in retrospect, what did you find?
What I found for myself is I did a lot more journaling in February about my past and the things I felt were keeping me stuck in my current position or current place in life. And the pressure was building so much that I couldn't really figure it out at first. I just had to sit with it, journal it out. And eventually I figured out some ways to move through the energy by taking small action to get me out of those cycles. One of my cycles in particular was being tepid, which is like kind of something you would normally use for a state of water, like not too hot, not too cold. But I had a problem with making decisions. All my journaling process in February came to these conclusions. But what I learned in February was how to take more decisive action on things that I wanted to do and stop abdicating my power to others and then getting a little bit passive aggressive when the outcomes weren't as I thought they would be. Being less wishy washy or tepid, moving into taking more action on loving myself, taking more movements towards that. So that's what February really opened up for me. It's a cycle that I've been doing since I was a kid, and I'm glad I have more awareness over it. How about you, Alice?
I was going to just ask you one more
Mm,
question about that. When you
sure.
were doing your journaling and looking, did you find that the February energy of feeling trapped, etc., did it almost feel like a dark night of the soul? I
Yes.
misunderstood what the dark night of the soul really is.
So, for any audience members who are just tuning in or are not familiar with the Dark Night of the Soul, it's where you go through a lot of confusion about why things are happening to you or why things keep happening to you over and over again. And you feel trapped. You can think of it as like the Minotaur's labyrinth, if you know the mythology of that, where once you go into the maze, you can't get out, but you got to keep moving and eventually you'll get out of the maze. It could be a very trying time where you got to release a lot of emotions from what happened. There's a lot of forgiveness of others and yourself in that period. And getting it all out in a journal or maybe even talking to a therapist could be very helpful in that sort of a moment in your life, or a trusted friend too. Did that kind of answer your question, Alice?
It did. Thank you. I was thinking, I'm not sure I had a dark night of the soul moment in
Yeah.
February with Trap, but I sure felt trapped in a conversation that I've had for, goodness, years maybe. And that is, it doesn't feel right here. This place isn't right. Maybe we should move someplace else. I should say 55 years this has been
Okay.
going on. And what's resulted in 17 moves
Oh, wow.
over that period of time. And I just gave it up, reflecting on one of the questions in February from the book. What is the life I prefer? It occurred to me that I've never chosen where we are as the perfect place. This is right for us. This
Mhm.
is where we need to be. Everything's aligned. Now, I have thought along the way, well, the finances work or the culture works, the nearness, the proximity to work, or
Mhm.
it's good for my daughter, or it's good for the family, or whatever. But everything is aligned here. Even though For some people looking on the outside, it's you're an old person. How could you say it's all aligned? You're living out in the country. Where's the health care? But I looked around. We may be in the country, but we have neighbors all around. It's not like we're out in the forest.
Okay.
And they're looking out for us. Periodically, they drive by and they stop and they say, "How's everything? How's
Mm.
Phil, my husband? How's your daughter? How's things going? Can we help?" And then it occurred to me we're driving over I had eye surgery in the last month. And we're driving over to Valdosta, which is the closest large place where you can go. We don't have medical care here. And it was 20 minutes to get there. When we lived in Atlanta, it took 45 minutes to an hour just to go for a checkup. And I thought, well, this is not a problem. And we have people who are saying, "Oh, do you need a ride? Can we drive you over?" So all of these little things that I would hold, "Oh, it's not good. Maybe we should move." One more time. I've always been saying it. I'm always asked by my family, "Is this the last time we're moving?" And it's, "Oh, yes, yes." But then we move. And it just occurred to me, we're good. I can let go of all of that stuff. Now it's what small steps do I need to take to make sure that my life is in alignment with this, my thinking, my mindset in alignment with this. The house is in alignment with this. The car, get new tires on the car, little stuff like that. So that's been my experience in February. And that's a huge breakthrough. It's 55 years. Well,
Mhm.
you would know. You said
Yeah.
from a childhood, you had the experience of
Oh,
being, what
yeah.
did you call it, wishy washy or deferring to others, letting them choose for you.
And never choosing
Uh,
something that was in my best interest. So I was always abdicating my power to others. But also, it's funny you mentioned the whole moving thing because as a child, we moved lots of times and sometimes it was abrupt changes. I remember a time when I came home from high school, my mom's, "Okay, pack your things, we're leaving." And I was like, "What? But you're a kid, so you just have to go." So I've been conditioned over the years to be this way. And I'm just recognizing the impact it's had on my life. And I get the choice now to do some self love and choose to move myself. So that's something I'm going to be doing in the next few months is taking the steps to move out on my own and redefine my idea of what a family looks like. So it should be kind of beautiful.
It's amazing how getting through this and just doing the reflective questions, etc., we see that with this collective energy from February moving into small cattle, which is the
Mhm.
collective energy of March, that we've redefined our lives in significant ways. And this just what, 4 weeks?
Yeah.
We were just here together talking 4 weeks ago, and it's been a state change, but it hasn't been like the earth fell down on top of us or something. It's just a subtle, but actually a beautiful kind of state
Yeah.
change.
And can I ask you, Alice? I felt empowered in my decision that I could finally take responsibility for my own decisions. Did you feel a little bit empowered when you came to that realization too?
Yes, and I shared with my husband, and he was so relieved.
We're
And then
not
I've
moving.
been taking steps to clean up things. We don't have to have all this stuff around. It was like everything was on hold until I got it right. It's moving through things and getting organized little by little. In the past, I would do these huge sweeping changes, packing up, drama. Maybe that's what it was. Drama.
Yeah.
But the empowerment is actually coming from within, a sense of knowing. And I think part of successness is getting reconnected and aligned up with your goals and your inner self and why you're here, what you're here for. That kind of clicked into play. It
Mhm.
wasn't like I went on a big crusade to figure that out. As you said, the empowerment came, the
Yeah.
clarity that
What's funny is in human design, we move through what's called the gate 55, or it would be hexagram 55, or it's called the gate of spirit or abundance. And that gate's all about moving from feeling like a victim of circumstance to feeling free. After I made this choice, I started to feel like a little bit free. I know you're staying in the same place, but was there a freedom also attached to that?
absolutely.
Awesome. Seeming to feel the same things.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the collective energies. How does it impact your work with human design?
In human design, basically, unlike astrology, where it looks at what's going on outside, like the weather, human design looks at people from the inside. So it says, this is who you are. It gives you a decision making strategy and authority to know which decisions are correct for you. You don't really need to know what's going on outside. If you know what's going on inside, you do a check in with yourself, and then that tells you what decisions are correct for you. I have emotional authority, for example, so I have to sleep on things. So anytime there was a big pivotal moment and I was confused during this trapped or stuck energy that wasn't going anywhere, I would go to sleep, and then in the morning, sometimes the morning was like 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. because I would just wake up energized. I would just start writing in my journal, or sometimes YouTube would just have the perfect video on it. Like, the algorithm speaks to me. I don't know about anyone else, but it sends me the right information. I feel that's a little spirit led or God led right there. I use all this information to work out my stuff in the morning, and I felt like really inspired. Yeah.
With the collective energy, and that's really what in the book we're talking about the energy currents around us, in the world around us. And we have our own energy, as you said, inner direction,
Hmm.
but it's how we get influenced
Hmm.
potentially by the energies around us
Yeah.
because there's a lot of noise
Yes.
and a lot of the noise shifts depending on the energy currents. We have moved from steadfastness
Hmm.
now into the March energy, and that's small cattle. I think you had mentioned that in your human design, it's considered is the
Oh, it's actually the gate of focus, gate 9, or
gate nine.
hexagram 9. Yeah. So this small cattle, hexagram 9, is called the gate of focus. And it's all about focusing on the tiny details, or it's called preponderance of the small.
That's
So
it,
it's like thinking about the little, just like when you say small cattle, you can think of cattle as thoughts. So thinking about little thoughts. That's when I heard small cattle, I was like, okay, that kind of makes sense. Because some
right?
people try to herd their thoughts and try to keep them
Yes.
all nice and neat.
So I know that there are various translations of the I Ching. It's been around as a divination tool and as a guidance for behavior and things like
Mhm.
that for what, 5,000 years?
Yeah, it's
Maybe more.
yeah, older than the Bible, which is
Yeah.
kind of crazy to think about.
And it's been used in Asia, originally divination, but also Confucius used it for part of the Confucian character, how you should be in the world. There's a Taoist version of it. So there's been a lot of input, and people look at different publications of
Mhm,
it. So it's good to know that it's called the preponderance of the small or
mhm,
hexagon, depending on what you're using, you can relate to it. What we're looking at is more from a collective, not an individual divination tool. Eva's written it from the perspective of the
yeah.
collective.
I also want to mention, Alice, that I don't know where people are in their journey of understanding, but everything in your inner world is reflected in your outer world too. When we're talking about focusing on the details or thinking about the small things, it's also going to be part of your inner world because it's going to be reflected in your outer world. It's not necessarily energy you carry, but it's energy that you have a opportunity to interact with. It's ways you can get a deeper understanding of what's going on. You can get a deeper understanding through the energies you see outside of yourself and compare those to the energies that you feel inside yourself to give you a bit of a deeper understanding.
Many times, I think we can be influenced by the energy outside of us, by the conversations, etc. And then we end up concerned or blaming ourselves or thinking there's something wrong with us when many times there's not, like you said, it's knowing your inner self and your goals, your values, what your purpose is, and staying in alignment with that as opposed to getting swept up almost in a mob or a
Yes.
frenzy or something like that just because the energy is like that.
Yeah. And this actually leads into the energy of what March is going to be like, where it's almost calling us to be in the eye of the storm. So there's going to be a lot of stuff going on outside, but it's how we show up with integrity or compassion with others, even though they may not show you the same, because some people are going to be swept up in it because they don't know themselves. If you don't do any personal development or journaling or anything like that, then you're just being led by the waves and tossed around and life is happening to you. But when you understand yourself, then you have this point of reference that you can compare to your outside reality and say, oh, okay, like I don't have to participate, or I can participate in a more loving, compassionate way.
Leads into how each chapter is designed and their reflection questions. These are ways to find out more about your your mindset, your thinking, and what you were talking about. When we talk about March and Hexagram 9, I thought it was interesting that the very introduction to the chapter says that in February, steadfastness taught the art of holding true to principles without becoming rigid. It revealed all the ways we cling,
Yep.
grasping at people, roles, or memories. And
Mhm.
I think, yeah, especially those memories that no longer nourish us. So you're focusing on the single relationship or disappointment that went wrong rather than focusing on the 80% of your life that's steady and life affirming. And
Mhm.
so your perspective is skewed because you're only focused on maybe one thing or 20%. And I thought, wow, I remember this from way back in the day when I first started in management work. It was always called the 80-20 rule. I just found that interesting that it was like that. So 80% of your life, when you look at it, it's wonderful. You're so grateful to be here in this time now, having the health or the well being or everything, the friends, the family, the location, everything's working. But yet we tend to focus on one little piece from the past and we forget about the rest of it. And I
Mhm.
think in business, that was the same thing. Don't focus on the little bit, focus on the big picture, what's happening, where all the value is, and that's how you move forward because you've got strengths there. You're doing things that are uplifting you in that domain by focusing on the little negatives, things that you think went wrong. And if they're things from the past and you check it out with somebody else, they may say, what? I
Mhm.
don't remember you ever being like that. That's not how it worked out. So you could be holding a completely erroneous remembrance that's driving the rest of your life. So the point is to let it go or to
And
transmute it or upgrade the conversation to
yeah.
something like, oh, that was then, this is now. I don't have that anymore. I can let that go.
Yeah, I just wanted to say the beginning of March is going to start to test our integrity. There's going to be people maybe doing or saying things that maybe you don't want to hear. And then it's like, how can I enter the situation? Or am I going to be reactive and totally lose it? And then that kind of moves towards more like breaking apart or things falling apart. And that could even be electronics failure, car breakdowns, as it mentions in the book. When these things happen, how can you move through this with grace? It's really up to the individual. Some people are not going to move through it with grace, and some people are. One story I just heard today, my daughter came home and she said an accident had happened behind her. Nobody was hurt or anything, but one of the ladies jumped out of her car and she was on her knees screaming at the world about it. She's probably already moving into this energy of testing her integrity, but she's not aware of that going on because most people are not aware of what me and Alice are talking about. If you're here, you know, but most people are just going to be reacting to the chaos or what they believe to be chaos, but it's here to just test your integrity and make you stronger, make you a stronger person.
I wanted to talk a little bit about the movements of the energy for small cattle. What Eve does in the book is she now breaks down the hexagrams into the different lines. Every hexagram has 6 lines because that's what hexa means. It means 6. The information that the I Ching gives in the interpretation of the hexagram moves through each line like the energy would be moving through the world. First movement of the energy is in maintaining your integrity, which I think we were talking about, saying, who do I want to be in this moment, as opposed to being unconscious about what's happening. You always have a choice to stop. Like you said,
Mm,
especially if you're journaling. These are great questions. Sometimes in the moment, you don't think about that, but it's who do I want to be? The other one is the choice that I want to take now. Is that really aligned with my deeper integrity, with who I really feel I am and I want to be? I know throughout this book and last year's book, Eve would point out at various times, does that conversation enliven you or lift you up? Or does it diminish you? Or if you're gathering people around you, does that person encourage you, lift you up, or are they trying to compete
mhm,
and diminish you? That was interesting. The first movement of the energy, then it goes into anchored in values, which we've been talking about, being aligned, really thinking about who we are in the world and what our values are.
mhm.
And the way we're living our life, does it look like we're living it in alignment or consistent with what we say our values are?
I was just gonna say, so if you're backstabbing or lying or telling half truths to people, is that really how you wanna represent yourself?
Exactly. The third movement, I think you had mentioned about breakdowns earlier. So the reflective question, which is to be pondering this month as we're in March, where am I meeting resistance in life? Which would include a wide spectrum of places. Where are you meeting it? Is it at home? Is it in relationship? Is it at work? Where is it? And what are my current disruptions, these small breakdowns or big breakdowns, showing me about my needs and my limits? Do they bring to light really what you feel you really need to nourish your soul? Or do they point out some of the limitations you've set on yourself? The fourth one is violence, which I think is very interesting. And you had talked about the storm. Could you
Yep.
say a little bit about the storm?
Sure. So when there's chaos around, like the accident I was speaking about earlier, or maybe a fight breaks out in a mall, you don't have to be a part of it because sometimes in a chaotic situation, nobody is really listening to reason. If you try to go in there with reason, you might get swept up into it. I know the sixth movement is usually a warning, but I think this one's a warning that if you see sorts of things like that, if you really don't have a solution or something that might work to cut the chaos, to step back from it. Whatever that chaos is, it could be family members fighting or anything like that as well. Pause, yes. Power of the pause.
Yeah. And maybe if you can, think about it overnight. Think about it over a week. Take your time, as you said, rather than getting swept up into it.
Yeah, and can I add a little bit more on the pause?
Please.
I wrote an article on Substack about taking a pause when you're feeling angry and how the anger is masking some underlying feeling you actually have. So, taking a pause can give you more opportunity to see many perspectives of the situation by going past the anger, which is just protecting you from how you feel. I know that's a bit deep, but if you journal, write in your journal, what is my anger protecting me from? That was something my friend Rachel really opened me up to and was super helpful in my journaling practice.
Could you give just a very simple example?
Let's say you have a disagreement. You're angry because your children don't do the dishes. You feel like you're always the one that does the dishes. And something I like to say, or I've been saying to my mom, is it's never about the dishes. There's always something deeper that anger is hiding from you. This could be like a deep feeling that your family doesn't respect you. It's not even about the dishes. It becomes about the vacuuming and all the other chores going on in the house. So that's just a simple example. You can even go deeper into, well, how do I contribute to the disrespect? Because we teach people how to treat us. I was a wishy washy person. So I wasn't really making decisions. I let other people make decisions. If they disrespect me, it's because I've always let them operate in that way because I never stood in my own truth and what I wanted. I never stood up for that. I never wanted to make the decision myself. Yeah, that's something February really taught me. And going forward, I'm going to be working on that. It keeps going deeper and deeper, and you can really unravel what's going on. Keep on asking why, why this, and then eventually you'll get there.
The next movement is movement five, to
Mm,
exploit. And it says, after turbulence, the fog lifts. Others' weaknesses may become visible. And you might see how to use someone's vulnerability to your advantage. And so it says, don't.
Yeah.
That would be like a warning, wouldn't you say?
Yep, for sure. If you witness somebody else is kind of trapped in the anger or the chaos situation and you see a way to exploit that, you're better off maybe just stepping back and not getting engaged with it. This kind of reminded me of bad karma, right? When you do harm unto others and then you receive harm upon yourself. It's just better to stay out of it, or when the chaos is calmed, maybe talk to them about what you saw if they're open to it, because we learned how to be advisors, right?
Stress movement is the hidden danger of relief. Tension
Interesting.
breaks, there's a rush of relief. Oh, thank goodness. And yet, in relief, judgment may be blurred. Be cautious with choices that seem too good to be true. So, this is definitely the warning of the chapter,
Yeah.
is that when all the turmoil breaks and you are in the area of relief, thank goodness we're moving forward, well, blah, 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 be cautious. So you have an impulse to move fast now. And what does the I Ching seem to always be saying to us? All steps.
Yep, small steps. So you always got to go back to those small steps. And just because the way is clear, let's say you're having a problem and you see an ad and it looks like the solution, don't rush out and buy it. Do some investigative work, take some small steps, see if other people have used the solution, see that it's valid. Just take some little tiny action steps to make sure that, okay, I'm going to leap after I look. Don't leap before you look.
That's great. That reminds me of my wanting to move. So we were up in the area we were thinking of in North Georgia, and I'd identified a place. Oh, like you said, too good to be
Yeah.
true. There was this horrendous rainstorm. We were leaving to go, flash floods, warning for 24 hours, and pouring rain. So we go by this house. It's down in a gully, and the whole yard is filled with water,
Oh, wow.
and it was still pouring rain. You know, the way the runoff works, even if the rain stops, there's still drainage and there's still runoff. And I feel bad. It would have been a disaster to
Yeah.
do that. So I feel very close to this warning. Take your time, think about it,
Yeah,
relax.
do a little investigating, right?
If
Like you
it,
did. You went and checked out the property and you're like, I'm glad I did.
right, it seemed too good to be true on the
That's great.
internet.
Yeah. $1. Oh, that's great. I was looking for a new home and you get there and it's just like an outhouse or something.
It's a tear down, right?
Yeah.
It's,
It's gonna
oh,
cost you more to tear it down
exactly.
than yeah, than it's worth. That's funny.
Exactly. That's the energy we're going to be
Yeah.
living into for March. And I've
Um,
already moved into it. How about you?
oh yeah, for sure. The fights have already started. And I told you about the accident that kind of happened today. I also wanted to note with small cattle, it's coming back around in June. And Eve mentions this in her book as well. And it's going to be a time to get even better with this sort of energy. So when everything is cracking or breaking around you, when there's fighting or people want to pull you into their stuff, it's going to just give you a second opportunity to strengthen your resolve in that area.
I'm glad you pointed that out. That helps me segue into,
Mm,
if you haven't purchased the book, very inexpensive, $10
mhm.
on Amazon, I Ching Predictions for 2026. Because ahead of us in this year, we're going to have a lot of unusual energy for this year and the next also. So if this you find it's helpful to have the conversations and the reflection questions seemed interesting to you and something you would benefit from, then I would encourage you to check out. I've got a link below in the description for this book. And also, I know you mentioned your Substack,
Yeah.
and we'll put a link below for Donald's Substack so that if you're interested in following him, he'll be talking from his hidden path, hidden design
Mhm.
perspective in that. And that combines astrology, the I Ching, and am I missing something?
Also, the chakra system involved in it and the Hindu Brahmin chakra system as well.
So that gives a great perspective. And we're so glad to be collaborating together.
Also, before we go, do you want to mention how they'll know the energy of March is at an end and it's we're moving into April? Do you want me to cover that?
Why don't you speak? I think it's on page 85.
At the end of March, you'll know you're moving into the energies of April when you start to feel frustration. Small frustrations become more intense. and you're going to start to see things falling apart more. I just wanted to speak on that a little bit because when we see things falling apart, it may be cause for alarm. However, it also clears a path for something new and better to be put in that. It's just something to think about. It may be shocking if things do fall apart, but think of the space that it's making for new things to be built, maybe even in a better way. Like, not to be worried about it. That's all I'm saying.
That's great. So we're starting with small cradle cracks appear, and
Yeah.
then we'll be moving into April where the fissures may appear, not just little small cracks. There may be a lot more going on. Working through the reflective questions and rereading the chapter for March will be good preparation for going into April. And that brings me to we'll be back again the end of March. We'll be sharing our experiences and then talking about the energy of April. And in addition to our sharing, check out this YouTube channel because Eve Smith, who wrote the book, is giving what she calls a mini course for each month where she's going through the predictions. And it's a really great way to get a high level overview of what's happening. We like to share how does it feel down on the ground in our lives. I would love to have you join us. We'll see you again the end of March. Anything else you would like to add?
I feel totally complete.
That's great. Have a great month, and we'll see you again soon.
Bye.
Bye.